Yes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the story behind the story. I'm your host, Dr. A. Truott. Yes, indeed, it's time to listen to the doctor. Yes, we got some great news for you today. Hopefully a good show that'll keep you informed and somewhat entertained, perhaps. Oh, yes, it's the second day of January, and here we are in a new time slot. Oh, this has got to be fun. Going on the air from 5 to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I thank Joe McNeil for the opportunity to go more prime time in the hopes that would increase listenership. I think that's a compliment to me. I think that people seem to like the show. People seem to like the content. There are, of course, people who would say I'm an anti-Semite, hate peddler, etc. No, ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very clear. I don't hate anybody or anything. I really don't. I have concerns, as most Americans do, that we are heading in the wrong direction, whether it's off a so-called fiscal cliff or just as in the days of the biblical prophet Hosea, who declared, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." I submit most Americans are blissfully ignorant of the true facts about what is going on in America. This the radio show, this radio network, the Micro Effect, is, in my opinion, critically important. For that very reason, it gives you an alternative voice. And if you listen to this show and listen to the other hosts on this radio network, I submit the only way this can be successful is if you share the contents, share this program, share this show with other people. That's the only way we can really grow. Word of mouth is critically important. Indeed it is. Folks, the story behind the story, just in case you're new to the show, new to this time slot, let me give you a little bit of a personal background history. Okay, I grew up in a place called Hawthorne, Nevada, little place in the desert. It's a beautiful spot, really. It's in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, about 140 miles east of Reno, Nevada. Carson City, the mountains around there, a beautiful part of the country. I grew up fishing a lot in Walker Lake, and I spent a lot of time in the foothills hunting chukar and quail and that type of thing. I did a lot of outdoorsy things. I grew up a Mormon boy, a Latter-day Saint boy. My parents, both sides of my parents' family, were multi-generational Mormons. My mother's maiden name was Haywood, with an H-E-Y, and her posterity, her history goes back to the very earliest days of Utah settlement. In fact, her ancestor, her Haywood ancestor, Joseph Leland Haywood is his name, came across the plains with the Saints, the early Mormon pioneers, and settled in Utah. And as such, Joseph Leland Haywood became an inner circle of the brethren of Brigham Young and the 12 apostles. He was set apart as territorial marshal of the Utah territory. Back then it was called the state of Deseret. And this was a huge area, folks. Encompassed much of modern-day Colorado, Arizona, all of Utah, all of the Great Basin, basically, of Nevada, most of Idaho, and parts of Wyoming. Is a huge territory, the territory of Deseret. When the Mormon pioneers in 1847 came into the Great Basin, it was actually not even a part of America then. It was a state of Mexico. It was Mexican, folks. It didn't even belong to the United States. And it was only after the Mexican-American War, the Battle of San Jacinto and others, the war years basically ceded the territory control to the United States of America. And Brigham Young was in a unique spot there as basically governor of this Deseret territory. So, I have historical roots, my maternal side of my family, my paternal side, my father's side goes back to a Mormon icon named Joel Hills Johnson. So, we're talking 5 generations of Mormonism in my upbringing, you see. But I gotta tell you, there became a time when I really began to honestly question what I was seeing, what I was hearing, and it just didn't jive with the spirit of freedom, the spirit of truth. Just flat out didn't jive with what I was reading in the Bible and studying about Christ and his message of grace. It just didn't jive. There came a point in time where I had to make a decision. I indeed asked for my name to be removed from the Mormon church rolls. I was immediately called in for apostasy for daring to even have my name removed, and the rest is really history. They excommunicated me after I sent a letter in asking my name to be removed, and it's just a learning curve since that time and in the year 2002. So anyway, folks, that's my background history. Why I am a host on the Micro Effect today is simply because I began a radio show in the 90s. I'm not exactly sure the date we first started. I believe it was in 1995. The format was simply the story behind the story. What the news media failed to mention and didn't even talk about in many instances. That jump-started my investigations into really why the media is so controlled. And that it led me to find that there's a select group of people that's international banking affiliate, Goldman Sachs affiliated, that controls the news media organizations, whether it's television, whether it's radio, whether it's newspapers, book publishers, etc., etc. There is an absolute central theme of control going through, and it's a group of people I came to find out that so they call themselves Jewish, but that's all questionable too. Are they really, truly the bloodline Israel or not? And that led me to just do a huge amount of research, a huge amount of study, a huge amount of documentation. And I came to find out, folks, that the bloodline is that of Esau, which is Edom. They became the Edomites, so-called Edomites, the controlling the treasury at the place called Petra, the Rock, the Red Rock, the city's nation fortress of Petra, which is located today in modern-day Jordan. From there, folks, they have expanded their power of money, the power of mammon. For make no mistake, they are in bed and in league with Satan and the demon Mammon. And if you want to believe that Satan doesn't exist, if you want to believe that the dark powers of Satanism aren't real, that's your choice. You can believe whatever you want to believe. You are free to believe wrongfully. You are free to have false doctrines and notions in your mind. Satan wins a great victory when he convinces the masses that he doesn't exist, that there is no evil influence and evil power. Folks, I am a son of God. I am a son of Jesus Christ, Yeshua. In my heart, I have accepted him as my Lord and Savior. He has entered my heart. And with the spirit of truth, I do research. Now, I'm sometimes mistaken, but they're honest mistakes at least. I don't have an agenda. I'm not getting paid. I'm not part of Clear Channel, the Mossad-operated channel that runs the likes of Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck. These are puppets controlled by the Mossad, Israel Mossad, folks. Do your own homework. Do your research. Clear Channel is the syndication owned by Bain and Capital. Remember that company, Bain and Company? Bain of Willard Middens Romney ilk, okay? That's who owns it. And look who runs Bain. Look who owns Bain. Look who's the CEO and controller of Bain. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, also known as the Mossad. That's just the way it is, folks. That's fact. I just tell it like it is. I have no other way to say it but to come out and say it. When you look at the headlines, the story behind the story, we'll delve into the headlines and give you really a Christian viewpoint of really what's going on behind the scenes. Now, the big thing you have to understand as a listener to the story behind the story is there's a number of huge lies, of myths that have been perpetrated. Number one, I think on the list of importance to understand is the people that call themselves Jews today are not Jews, but are indeed of the house of Esau, which is Edom. They are truly Edomites, which again, you look at their history. Esau, which is Edom, took upon himself multiple forbidden wives. The Horim, the Horites, which are best known in the Bible as simply troglodytes, cave dwellers in the area of Mount Seir. Mount Seir is synonymous with the rock of Petra. Petra is also known as Mount Seir. So in the Reader's Digest condensed version, you see this became known, the troglodytes became also known as the tribe of Gog and Magog. Gog, troglodytes. Now the Horim, the Horites, they're distinguished throughout the genealogy lineage, the bloodline, DNA, folks, having very singular attributes. They have a large hook-nosed face. They have bloodline characteristics that lead them to such diagnosis as what's called Asperger's syndrome. They've expanded Asperger's syndrome, to give a wide range of treatable diseases. They say treatable by means of psychosis drugs, antipsychotic, mind-controlled drugs, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this again, please understand that even though you may be a troglodyte descendant, maybe even mixed race, it doesn't mean you can't come to Christ, and can't mean that Christ's blood cannot save you as well. So when I say these things, it's historically valid, it's anthropologically valid, but it doesn't have to remain that way. One of the classic stories of conversion from a so-called Jewish bloodline into Christ is the story of Saul of Tarsus. Bloodline Pharisee, bloodline persecutor of the Christians, had a complete and total change of heart on the road to Damascus so many years ago, and became one of the strongest soldiers of Christ in the Christian movement. Priceless letters, documents going out. Again, it's not Israel, white, fair-skinned, Aryan Israel, that is God's chosen people anymore. When Christ gave up the ghost on that cross, He extended his saving grace to all nations, all kindreds, all tongues, all people. Whether it's Negroes, whether it's Caucasians, whether it's Asians, whether it's American Indians, it's all flesh can come to Christ. And that's the message. There's no white supremacy here. Not truly, if you truly understand Christ and his love. It's open to all men. So when I talk about these things, please understand I really do so with love to the Jewish people, to come forth and to recognize who Christ is, truly is their Messiah, that they're looking for. Now there are a subset of the Jewish people, without a doubt, that have made a complete and total blood commitment to Satan, to Lucifer. And these people, no matter how much you talk to them, they're not going to come to Christ. They are committed in every way to wipe Christians off the face of the earth. They are the hate mongers. They are the ones who we call terrorists, folks. If you haven't yet heard my show and read my blog, please take the opportunity to do so. My blog, The Story Behind the Story, can be read, and you can go to it. It's simply atrue, T-R-U-E, atrueot.com, atrueot.com. And if you want to, if you feel so inspired, you can click on the RSS feed. That gives you updates to people who comment. You can comment without it. I don't censor anything really unless it's some foul F-bomb language. I won't post those things. If you want to voice an opposing faith, belief, opinion, please. We don't censor those type of things. We really don't. But I will not allow terrible profanity to be posted. I can stop there. I will take those off as webmaster. So keep that in mind. And in fact, this show will not use profane language. We may occasionally use the H-E-double-L toothpick expletive, but that's about as far as it goes. Okay, we understand the need to have good language, positive language in this show as well. So here we are, folks. We're in a new time slot, 5 to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 4 to 6 on the Pacific Coast. And hopefully, again, we'll get listeners weighing in. This particular show is not live. We pre-recorded it. As I explained to Joe, I have local commitments with my local church. I do counseling. I do other work as far as music and other things from 5 to 7, actually from 5 Mountain Time till about 9 o'clock Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I just can't go live on those hours, but I can record the show and play it. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shows will be pre-recorded, with exceptions perhaps. Sometimes I can come on and do live show. Thursday, Fridays will be live as much as I'm able to do so. And we're happy to take your calls and response during that time. But Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, today, Wednesday, the 2nd day of January, this is a pre-recorded show, so we won't be live today. I have a simple motto, a simple dogma, that simply is truth fears no investigation. The only time we should be afraid of people questioning us is if we're putting out a huge lie or some type of fraud. Truth really, truly fears no investigation, ladies and gentlemen. And Jesus of Nazareth declared himself to be the truth. He said he's the way, the truth, and the life. And no man cometh unto the Father. No man is really saved in the kingdom of heaven, the New Jerusalem, unless they have a personal, intimate relationship with Jesus Christ. Many, many people know Jesus Christ, know of him, but they don't personally know him. Many, many, many people are fans of Jesus Christ, not followers of him. Think about that, folks. It's like people say, well, I have Jesus Christ in the name of my church. I speak of Jesus Christ all the time. Heavens, I even prophesy in the name of Jesus Christ. In the name of Jesus Christ, I do astral projection. In the name of Jesus Christ, I commune with ascended masters such as Saint Germain. And in the name of Jesus Christ, I read Urantia and I study Urantia. I am elite because I can ascend into a different source. I can ascend and meet with source. Folks, that's not Christian. That's not knowing Christ, because you see, Christ demands one thing. He demands loyalty from you. He is the Creator. He is our God. He is the only God upon which we have anything to do with. All of the other ascended masters, folks, are just imposters. They're entities of demons who wish to deceive you and take away the ultimate role of King Jesus. No king, no president, no prophet, but Jesus Christ. Christ is all. That's where I'm coming from on this show, the story behind the story. I don't want to offend people, but I'll call a spade a spade. I'll call an ace an ace. I'll call it the way I see it. I won't keep anything hidden in the deck of cards, folks. I'll tell it the way it is. And as we enter this new year with our New Year's resolutions, our plans and our future, hopefully you'll take me along the way with you. Hopefully you'll share what I have to say with other people. We've been doing the story behind the story. I say we, my family has helped me with this. Colleagues and friends along the way have helped me. When I first broadcast the story behind the story, we really began to expose in a big way the secrets behind the wire at so-called Area 51, going to the mountaintops of surrounding the Area 51, taking photographs, researching, watching, interviewing people who worked there, used to work there, and basically exposing it, this UFO agenda. That's part of what I started doing. There is no doubt that there was a secret agenda concerning unidentified flying objects, UFOs. There is no doubt about that. Now, many of you on the Micro Effect listen to Don Nikoloff. Don Nikoloff is what I consider to be a friend. His intellect is amazing. His insight, his intuition is sharp. Many, many people have opinions of Don Nikoloff. They think he's a little bit out there when he talks about the so-called Galactic Federation, United Galactic Federation. And there's a specific title. Again, I don't hardly get it right all the time. But folks, the message is extremely plausible to me personally, based on my earlier exposés and interviews of people like Bill Cooper, like Lazar and others, who tell of an incredible story of cover-up, of an agenda from a demonic entity host of dimensional interdimensional origins. Folks, we'll explore all of that. There's nothing out of bounds. There's nothing out of the ordinary, but by so doing, I submit it will help you understand the secrecies and the hidden agendas of this shadow government. The so-called synagogue of Satan, really indeed, that's the hidden fifth column. And we'll explain that, and we'll tie it all together as we go through. Folks, thanks for listening to this first segment. We're going to take a break here shortly. We'll come back after these messages with the second segment of the story behind the story. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We will be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second segment of today's story behind the story. Oh, golly, yes. So that's with that introduction, let me continue on with what I think to be the headlines, the story behind the story of the headlines. Of course, most people in America today are breathing a big sigh of relief. Oh, we didn't go over the fiscal cliff. Oh, heavens to Betsy. Oh, yeah, you know, in the stock market, oh, yeah, golly, it's just going crazy this morning. Again, I'm recording this in the AM, and it's going to be broadcast on the Micro Effect and PM. But so I'm watching the stock market. Golly, yeah, it's going crazy. It's going off the charts. At least early it has, as of 11 o'clock a.m. What's really happening, folks, is the fiscal cliff. Oh, yeah, people are really so happy that we've gotten back to what they call normal by this late, last-minute deal-making, political deal-making. Well, let me just share with you my analysis of the so-called fiscal cliff agreement. I'll try to put it into easy-to-understand layman's terms. How does that sound? Let's put it in a much better perspective. We can learn by looking at this fiscal cliff agreement. Oh, here is the numbers, ladies and gentlemen. There's so many zeros behind these. We're going to just be well served, I think, to cut off the zeros. But the United States total tax revenue from all sources, okay? This is corporate tax. This is excise, import taxes, tax. This is the tax revenue from we the people. The U.S. tax revenue for 2012, according to this fiscal cliff agreement, $2,170 billion. $2,170 billion. That's 9 zeros. 2,170 followed by 9 zeros. Here's the other number you need to be aware of. The federal government's budget is $3,820 billion. That's 9 zeros. So let's just truncate the zeros, shall we? 3,820 followed by 9 zeros. What does that mean, folks? We add to the incredibly large national debt a total of $1,650 billion with a B. 1,650 followed by 9 zeros. Do you know, folks, I just laugh at the way the media portrays things. I just laugh when the media says, we're heading towards a fiscal cliff. Gotta laugh. You gotta laugh when you really understand the numbers. Fiscal cliff. The national debt now, with this signing, the numbers is 14,271,000,000,000. 14,271 followed by 9 zeros. Do you know how much was cut when this Obama last-minute deal, do you know how much was actually cut from the federal budget, folks? 38,500,000,000. Now, I don't know about you folks, but my goodness, when you talk about trillions and billions, it's of dollars. The average American, I look at myself as one of the average Americans, maybe lower class as far as the income stream. I'm definitely not wealthy. I don't have millions of dollars in a savings account. I just don't. Most Americans don't. So let's put this into what the average American can grasp. Let me just ask you. Let's put this in everyday language. Let's remove 8 zeros, and that puts it into most Americans' ideas. If we remove 8 zeros, this is what we get, folks. And let's call it U.S. tax revenue instead of calling it that. Let's have annual family income. The annual family income, take away 8 zeros, is $21,700. The money the family spent by removing the same thing as the federal budget. See, this is what the government is going to spend. The family takes in $21,700, yet the family spends $38,200. But see, the family has a credit card, a group of credit cards. This family doesn't really need to worry so much because they have unlimited credit availability. They have a friend in the banking institution that says, go ahead and use your credit cards all you want. You don't have to worry about it. Because you see, it's all a joke anyway. Here's your credit card. You have 5 or 6 credit cards, unlimited amount. Just kind of be a little bit careful, right? So the family spends $38,200, but they only have income from their business or their labor $21,700. So $16,500 has to go on their debt credit card system. Oh, they worry a little bit because, the credit card company sends them a total bill. The total balance on their credit card is now $142,710. Oh, folks, this is incredibly important to grasp. This family is spending nearly double what their income is. The total cuts they make in their spending, the total budget cuts the family has sacrificed so far, $38.50. $38.50. That's a date with mom and dad out one night out of the 52-week year. Oh, honey, we're going to have to cut back and not go out to dinner one time, and that's our budget cut. Do you get the problem, ladies and gentlemen? Well, who has the debt? Who really is the credit card company that we have to worry about, see? This debentures, these U.S. Treasury notes, you see, this bond paper has been sold to other nations. And who sells it? Who binds this together? Who's the creditor? Who's the usurers? Ladies and gentlemen, it's these Edomites that I explained to you in the first half hour. These are the bankers. These are the treasurers from Mount Seir, Petra. Now do some digging. Go look on National Geographic's website about their pictures of Petra, this incredible red rock fortress carved out of solid stone. One of the really wonders of the ancient world indeed. I can't imagine people carving these buildings out of this stone. How did they do it? What technology did they use? I like to see what type of a building I could cut out of a sandstone cliff with the tools I have available. I mean, it would look kind of gnarly. But look at the pictures, folks. The treasury of Petra, the treasury of these Edomites, the treasury building is the identical facade, the identical architecture of the United States Treasury building. Do you think that's just an absolute coincidence? You see, who brought us the Federal Reserve System 100 years ago in the year 1913? Who? This group that simply says they are Jews, but they are not Jews, folks. They are indeed, according to the book of Revelation, the synagogue of Satan. They have been flooding America with their debt instruments since the year 1913. A century, a full 100 years of expansion makes us the vassal slaves of this group of elitists, these financiers. And folks, the reality is there's $325 plus trillion of what's called derivatives. These are debenture instruments, contracts, you see, to buy and sell based on nothing but credit. Their paper there is nothing at all produced with derivatives. Nothing. You take a promise to pay, a debt instrument, whether it's grease. I'm not talking about the grease on the frying pan. The nation, the Greek nation, the nation called Greece. Whether it's that, whether it's all of the euro spending nations of Europe, folks, you can take a currency, which is a debt, a debenture, on the world market, and make a contract based on future projections. It's playing the future, folks. These are what derivatives are. And it doesn't even have to be currencies. It could be orange juice. It could be citrus oranges futures. It can be peanuts. It can be soybeans. It could be beef cattle. You get the picture? Oil. Whatever. These Edomites create value in their minds by these so-called derivatives. I know. I've been there. I was trained in Wall Street, folks. I actually won a scholarship, went back 6 weeks, and learned from these Edomites at the top how to do it, how they operate. I had a real choice to make. I can be part of this smoke and mirrors and make gold, change the paper, these debt instruments, Federal Reserve notes. No, I can change them and buy hard asset called gold and store it in a Swiss bank account. That's exactly what we were told to do by Paul Volcker, chairman at that time of the Federal Reserve System in the 1980s when I was back there. Oh yes, folks. I had a choice to make. I can either be part of this mirage or try and do something productive. Actually produce something to help humanity, not just be a leech, a blood-sucking leech, a tick, a politic, polytick. Poly means numerous, tick, a blood-sucking little bug, insect that gets under your skin. Politics are well named. Folks, let's suppose you come into your home, your neighborhood, come home from work one day and you find out there's a terrible stink in the neighborhood. There's this terrible stench, and there's raw sewage flowing down the gutters of the street. You go into your home and you find out, oh my goodness, your whole basement is flooded to the ceiling. In fact, because your house is on a, was enclosed, this raw, stinky sewage is all the way up to your ceilings of your roof. I got a question for you. Logical question, folks. If you come home and you see this happening, what do you think you should do? Should you think, as the Edomites do, let's raise the debt ceiling, let's raise our ceilings so we can take more of this smelly fecal matter, liquid fecal matter? Or do you clean house? Do you pump the crap out and put it back in the sewer where it belongs? And clean and rebuild, if necessary, the house. Hello? Tell me how this is illogical, folks. The sewer that's backing up and is filling our house with this, it is absolutely unhealthy, sickening stench, is brought to you courtesy of your local friendly Edomite. The Zionists, the world global Zionist cartel, the House of Rothschild, the Bank of Rothschild, these same folks that bring you war, that bring you terrorism. Folks, like I told you in the first segment, I'll call a spade a spade. I'll call an ace, and I cannot apologize for doing so. The politicians will just want to keep it. Don't rock the boat. Let's not go over any fiscal cliff. Let's sign off on this irrepressible problem. And let's not look at the sewer that's backing up into our republic. This one nation under God is under sewage right now, ladies and gentlemen. We got to clean it up. We simply have to. No more manipulation of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the fecal matter that has to be cleansed out, folks. The bottom line is simply this: in this whole parable, this whole example, we the people do not need a third party for huge trillions of dollars of interest profit to operate in this country. We don't need that. Let me expand and explain to you the parable here and why it's so critically important for you to get a grasp of this, folks. Many Americans just don't grasp how our money supply is created under the Federal Reserve System. You just don't grasp it. The Federal Treasury Department, the United States Treasury, works with the House of Representatives, the budget directors of Congress and the Senate, and they prepare a fiscal year budget based on what they need to have to spend. And our example of a home, if you're going to spend $38,500, you darn well better come out there and do something to increase your income. And taxes is not the problem, not the situation. Spending is not so much the problem, folks, is that you have no viable income. And that's by design, because you see they want the families to be in their debt. The debt is the key, because you see debt, credit cards, or in the case of the federal government, the national debt is owned to the Federal Reserve private banksters. Now, if you take away the private group that issues the money supply, you don't have debt anymore. It's pretty basically simple. There's no need to go and get a credit card anymore. See, it's just the simple facts of the matter. The Federal Reserve is not a branch of the federal government. It's not anymore a branch of the federal government, as Federal Express is a part of the Postal Service. It's not. It's a private for-profit business and corporation. We don't need that profiting going off to a third-party group of Edomites, the Jews who say they are Jews but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. We, as Americans, need to awake to that and understand that one core truth. My goodness. It's pretty simple. It really, truly is a simple concept. You see, Abraham Lincoln, this movie to Lincoln, I took my family to see Lincoln over the Christmas holiday. Our family were all together. What do you want to go see? Let's go see a movie. Okay, I vote Lincoln. Well, I thought it would be much different. I really did. I was very disappointed. You see, Steven Spielberg did a great job in really not telling the big story of Abraham Lincoln, and really the big reason why Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Leave it to Spielberg and Hollywood to hide the truth, keep Americans from discovering truth. Here's the bottom line, folks. Abraham Lincoln received from the Tsar of Russia intelligence reports detailing exactly who was manipulating the North, the agitators from business and politics, and the Southern agitators. And guess what, folks? It's these Edomite merchants, these mighty merchants, the banksters. It was true in the 1850s, true in the 1860s, it's true today. Trouble was, Abraham Lincoln just didn't quite get a handle on it until it was the latter part of his presidency. He didn't realize how he'd been manipulated. It took the Tsar's agents to come and explain it. And then, of course, you get, I explained on this show, the correspondence between Abraham Lincoln and his general, Ulysses S. Grant, concerning, who was really manipulating the cotton textile market of the South and allowing Jefferson Davis basically to buy supplies to keep his Army of the Confederacy going. Who's manipulating all these? You see, who supplies the gunpowder? Who supplies the money to wage war? Every single conflict, every single bloody war is manipulated by this group of individuals, and they profit by it. They don't fight the wars. They just let people kill each other off, and they come in and pick up the pieces and become stronger and more powerful in the process. I'm here to tell you, folks, I've done incredibly large amount of research in this. These Edomites control the gunpowder manufacturing, absolutely control the armaments, the munitions. They control it. They profit by it. Whether it's the Civil War, whether it's World War I or World War II. There was somebody profiting by war, always has. And whether it's today in the Persian Gulf, the Iraq War, the Afghan War, the war that they want us to precipitate against Iran, World War III. Folks, look beyond the headlines. Look beyond the story of the headlines and find the story behind the story, and you see the Edomites manipulating both sides. They say in the movie Lincoln it was all about slavery, the Civil War was all about. But folks, who brought us slavery? Who brought the southern plantations, these slaves from Africa? Who sold the slaves? Who ran the slave auctions? Who was really behind the whole slave market? Hey, look closely. It's the merchant Jews that did it, folks. I call a spade a spade. Steven Spielberg will never tell a story about that, I wager. Will he? Well, folks, that brings us to the top of the hour. The story behind the story continues. Oh, my heavens, what a story we have. We had to tell the story. And again, please go to my website, my blog, atruaw.com, my recent post. I want to talk to you about this at the top of the hour about Dr. David Duke. Hey, please stay tuned. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to the second hour of today's story behind the story. I had this listed as a story behind the story, feel-good moment, and I want to share this with you today. As you go into the new year, this is the first day back of school for the kids at Sandy Hook Elementary. The news media is making again a big thing about it. In the Associated Press story by John Christopherson, Pat Eaton-Rob, Sandy Hook students head back to school. Dateline, Newtown, Connecticut. Since escaping a gunman's rampage at their elementary school, the 8-year-old Connors triplets have suffered nightmares, jumped at noises, and clung to their parents a little more than usual. So here's these triplets named Connors. 8 years old, triplets. Get a picture in your mind. The story goes, continue, and I quote, "Now parents like David Connors are bracing to send their children back to school nearly 3 weeks after the shooting rampage at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. It won't be easy for the parents or the children who heard the gunshots that killed 20 of their classmates and 6 educators." Let me emphasize that. They heard the gunshots. They heard it. They didn't see the deaths. Interesting little side note. Well, we won't go there, but Connors, the father, said, quote, David Connors, quote, "I'm nervous about it. It's uncharted waters for us, and I know it's going to be difficult. Classes are starting Thursday." That's tomorrow, folks, at a repurposed school. What is that word? Repurposed. Not refurbished, repurposed school in the neighboring town of Monroe. They're not even going back to their same school, Newton. They're going to a repurposed school in another town where the students' desks have been taken along with backpacks and other belongings that were left behind in the chaos following the shooting on December 14th. Families have been coming in to see the new school, and an open house is scheduled for today, Wednesday. An army of workers has been getting the school ready, painting it, moving furniture, and even raising the floors in the bathrooms of the former middle school so the smaller elementary school students can reach the toilets. They're not even going to send them back to the same school in Newtown. Sandy Hook students head back to school. See, America just will never be the same, will they? This is a psychological operation, a psyops. There are so many questions poking their head out of the sand of Sandy Hook. So many anomalies. And now the media is saying, let's not ask questions. This is terror. These kids have got to just get back to normal. So let's not ask questions about it. Let's just forget it. But while we're speaking right now, ladies and gentlemen, while you're hearing the words of this broadcast, make no mistake, the most intensive anti-gun debate is preparing itself. Legislation, the most onerous, the most heinous legislation being authored by, yes, the politic of all politics, Dianne Feinstein. Oh, my heavens. There's so much open-ended language on her bill, it's just flat out about any gun can be classified an assault weapon. Incredible. Incredible. So here's the psychologists that enter in the picture. Dealing with tragedy, the story goes on. Julian Ford, a clinical psychologist at the University of Connecticut, who helped counsel families in the days immediately following the shooting, recommending addressing counseling as questions come up, but otherwise focusing on regular schoolwork. Quote, kids just spontaneously make associations and will start talking about something that reminds them of someone, or that reminds them of some of the scary parts of their experience, Ford said. Quote, they don't need a lot of words, they need a few selective words that are thoughtful and sensitive, like, we're going to be okay, and we really miss this person, but we'll always be able to think about her or him in ways that are really nice. It'll be important for parents and teachers to listen and be observant, Ford said. Quote, each of the boys and girls are going to have different reactions to different aspects of the environment. Different little things that will be reminders to them, he said. Parents might have a harder time with fear than children, Ford said. Now here's my question with this. Fear. Fear of what? Fear of guns. Fear of these terrible, ominous-looking pieces of metal. You see. That's the portrayals put out by the mainstream media. See, it's guns that are the problem. Immediately, guns, guns, guns. What part of the Second Amendment don't they understand? You see, it's not the guns that's the issue, it's the evil people that have. The evil people don't need guns to create chaos and mayhem. This psychops patsy, which is what it appears to be, could just have easily been armed with machetes. And, folks, it's clear these kids didn't see their little first graders shot in front of their eyes. They're just heard the shots. What does that tell you? My goodness. What a world. I kid you not, there's a Utah company. There's a Utah manufacturer that, according to the Salt Lake Tribune newspaper, is going crazy with orders. He can't fill all the thousands of orders coming in for his product. And this is amazing, folks. To me, it's just, what in the world are we coming to? I kid you not. Bulletproof backpacks, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you heard me right. Bulletproof backpacks. Ha! Parents are well, since Sandy, wow, I'm going to pay a couple, $100 or so easy to get some peace of mind. I'm going to send little Jimmy and Johnny and little Jenny off with a backpack that's bulletproof. Whoa. Does that make little Jenny feel any better, or does it make Mama Joan feel better? See? Incredible. It falls in the same category to me, frankly, as bicycle helmets. I mean, hello? Oh, wait, I just... in my neighborhood here in Utah, I was going out, and there's Mama and her two kids, a boy and a girl. Obviously, they've got brand new bicycles. They're shiny, brand new. Santa left them under the tree, I have no doubt. The one little bike had training wheels. Was all maybe, oh golly, a foot above the ground, a small little trainer bike. The other kid, the older boy, had looks like a Stingray type of racing bike, and Mama had a 10-speed or a 3-speed, I don't know, whatever. But the bottom line is they all had their shiny helmets on. I mean, the little girl with the training wheel bike had to have this helmet, and the helmet was kind of off askew, was kind of funky looking on her little head. Gotta have the helmets, gotta have the safety equipment. I want to know the statistics. How many little kids with training wheel bikes have suffered permanent head injuries from falling off their bike? I grew up in an era, folks, and I know you know what I'm talking about. You know, we didn't have no freaking helmets on for training wheel bikes. And, yeah, I remember falling off my bike. I remember on one occasion riding my 10-speed bike while I did my paper route. And the neighborhood dog came running out to greet me, this German Shepherd. And I just ran, and I had my paper bags on the sides, and I was going down, it was quite a little incline. I was going pretty fast rate of speed. The dog cut in front of me, and his hind leg got caught in the spokes of my wheel, and it went up and hit the frame of the bike, and boy, both me and the dog did you can imagine what happened. We did a huge Greg Louganis dive, head over heels, papers over papers. It was a heck of a wreck. And I landed, luckily, on my paper bags, and my head hit the pavement, and I had a little bit of a bloody scalp wound, but I didn't have permanent brain damage. Some people might think, listen to this show, I have had some permanent brain damage maybe, but come on, people. How many kids have had permanent brain damage or went into a concussion-related coma and never woken up? So this precipitates the need for biking helmets for kids. Gotta wear your bike helmets. Can't. I mean, come on. These bike helmets, these goat head-looking things, really protect you from a concussion? Can they really? Or are they just part of the politically correct garb? See? I say this because I think it's just an absolute joke to market and to even have people buy and pay $100 more, in some cases even more than that, for a bulletproof backpack for your little kid. What has our society come to? Send our little ones, our little kindergartners and first graders and second graders off to school with a bulletproof backpack. I wonder if that comes in Power Rangers or Barney logos with bulletproof status. I kid you not, folks. This is where our society is heading. Okay, we'll leave that, let that go. I want to share with you a story behind the story of, this is just we're coming out of the 2012 Christmas era. And by the way, unknown story behind the story. Do you know that they've actually uncovered, archaeologists in Peru and South America and other South American states have actually uncovered artifacts that now being declared to be yes, get this, hold on to your seats, a Mayan calendar. Central America and South America. This is not just one or two, this is multiple Mayan excavations that now is deeming to be Mayan calendars. What's new about this story? Just the fact that these Mayan calendars keep going on for 7,000 years now into the future. Why is this not being part of the news media? Why was all this hype about December 21st, the date of the end of the Mayan calendar? Why was the discovery of these other codices, these calendars, these date stones, these date rocks not talked about because they go into this to 7,000 years into the future? Dating it to AD 7000. What is it about fear-mongering? So many New Age... Lord Maitreya, so we channeled in where the world's going to end on December 21st. I got it from the Ascended Master who taught me all about Nostradamus, and it's going to end on the 21st of December. I laughed and mocked that out for a year and a half, folks, when it first came out. And yet, so many people literally thought the world was going to end on December 21st. Now, a high black Sabbath, by the way. In the synagogue of Satan's wheel of the year, the 8-point seal of Babylon, folks, the Yule celebration, the cusp, the top of the 5-pointed star of the pentagram, is December 21st, their high black Sabbath, the darkest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. Yeah. Could that have anything to do at all with the 21st of December being the day of destruction? It is for these dark Satanists, folks. It's never been more clear that they want you living in fear. They want you buying bulletproof backpacks for your little ones. I kid you not. Well, I wanted to share with you this incredible first-person story. I don't mind reading it in toto. This is actually an essay written by the Hollywood actor Jimmy Stewart. Let me tell you, folks, during this era when Jimmy Stewart made most of his movies in the 1940s, my goodness, this was an era when Hollywood, when the movie industry was not controlled and dominated by people like Steven Spielberg and others who want an agenda put out that there's a downtrodden race of elitists that just good people hate them, you know. That's what's happening in Hollywood these days, and the genre of shoot 'em up, disaster type of movies, and don't forget the horror movies of Harry Potter and things like Twilight. Come on, that's incredible. So, commenting on his career in December, Christmas of 1987, this is an incredible essay by Jimmy Stewart. I want to share this with you. I'll start it up here. We'll take a break. We'll jump back in the second part of the hour in today's show. December of 1987, the essay by Jimmy Stewart, It Is a Wonderful Life. Now, Jimmy Stewart was quite advanced in years in December, Christmas of 1987, so this is a memoir too. And this is published in the magazine Guidepost, one of the really good magazines of American culture. Some people say it's America's favorite magazine, the magazine called Guidepost. Here is what Jimmy Stewart wrote this December of 1987. This is the story behind the story. Quote, "A friend told me recently that seeing a movie I had made more than 40 years ago is now a holiday tradition in his family, quote, like putting up the Christmas tree." Now, folks, in the 80s, that's true. You couldn't turn on your TV without seeing It's a Wonderful Life all through the Christmas season. That's kind of changed now, hasn't it? You don't see It's a Wonderful Life like you used to in the 80s, do you? Instead, you see such things as It's a Miracle on 34th Street, replayed hundreds of times. You see A Christmas Story with, again, commercialism at its core, buying BB guns and things for the children. You don't see It's a Wonderful Life like you used to. And the reasons why is simple, folks. It's been bought up by a conglomerate and kept off, and by contract kept off cable TV and broadcasts. It's a fact. And look at the people who bought this up. Coincidence that it's a conglomerate, a syndicate of Edomites. So I just say that the movie I'm talking about, Jimmy Stewart writes, is It's a Wonderful Life. And here's what Jimmy Stewart wrote: "And out of all the 80 films I've made, it's my favorite one." But you didn't know that, did you? But it has an odd history. And so here is the story behind the story as told by Jimmy Stewart, December of 1987. He writes, quote, "When the war was over in 1945, I came back home to California from 3 years of service in the U.S. Air Force. I had been away from the film business. My MGM studio contract had run out, and frankly, I was not knowing how to get started again. I was just a little bit scared. Hank Fonda was in the same boat, and so we sort of wandered around together, talking, flying kites and stuff like that, but nothing much was happening. Then one day, Frank Capra phoned me." Frank Capra, folks, boy, he broke the mold. Really, in his movies, he did so many. They just basically told the truth in so many of his wonderful movies, and he was again ousted from the inner circle when these Edomites took over control of Hollywood. So Frank Capra's genre of movies kind of went the way of the dinosaur. This one day, Frank Capra phoned me, Jimmy Stewart writes. The great director had also been away in military service, making the Why We Fight documentary series for the military. And he admitted to me to being a little frightened too. But he had a movie in mind. We met in his office to talk about it. He said the idea came from a Christmas story written by a gentleman named Philip Van Doren Stem. Philip Van Doren Stem. According to Capra, Stem couldn't sell the story anywhere. But he finally had 200 24-page pamphlets printed up at his own expense, and he had sent them to his friends as a greeting card. Now listen, Frank Capra began hesitantly to me. He seemed a little embarrassed about what he was going to say. quote, the story starts in heaven. And it's sort of the Lord telling somebody to go down to earth because there's this fellow who's in trouble. And this heavenly being goes to a small town, and Frank swallowed and took a deep breath in. Well, what it boils down to is this fellow who thinks he's a failure in life jumps off a bridge. The Lord sends down an angel named Clarence who hasn't earned his wings yet, and Clarence jumps into the water to save the guy. But the angel can't swim, so the guy has to save him, and then, well, Frank Capra stopped and wiped his brow. This just doesn't tell very well, does it? Jimmy Stewart writes, quote, I jumped up. Frank, if you want to do a picture about a guy who jumps off a bridge and an angel named Clarence who hasn't won his wings yet coming down to save him, well, I'm your man. That's Jimmy Stewart's response to that. So production of the movie It's a Wonderful Life started on April 15th of the year 1946. And from the very beginning there was a certain something special about the film, writes Jimmy Stewart. Even the set was special. 2 full months had been spent creating the town of Bedford Falls, New York. For the winter scenes, the special effects department invented a new kind of realistic snow instead of using the traditional white cornflakes. As one of the longest American movie sets ever made until then, Bedford Falls had 75 stores and buildings on 4 acres with a 3-block main street lined with 20 full-grown oak trees. What a set. What a set. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got to take a break and come back after these messages, and you'll hopefully you want to hear the rest of this incredible story. The personal story of It's a Wonderful Life, written by Jimmy Stewart, December, Christmas time of 1987. Please stay tuned. We'll come right back with Jimmy Stewart's essay after these messages. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the final segment of today's Story Behind the Story, the second day of January, the 2013 year of our Lord. Oh, golly, ladies and gentlemen, yes, as we went to break, I was sharing with you this incredible story behind the story of one of my favorite movies of all time, not just Christmas movies itself, but the story of It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart. I like it for so many reasons because, you know, it reiterates hope, ladies and gentlemen. It gives each of us Christian hope that, you know, even though we're not perfect human beings, indeed, the things we do each and every day affects so many people in so many different ways, in ways we may not see right off. Recording this Story Behind the Story radio show may help just one person who may help somebody else all down the line. It really is a truth that what you do for good in people's lives, ladies and gentlemen, can never be wrong, can never be underestimated. You got to do the right thing for the right reason. And I submit the right reason, the most right reason, is to, again, proclaim truth, to proclaim honor, to proclaim integrity. There was a book written in 1879, ladies and gentlemen. It's called Special Testimonies, written by a Christian gentleman. And I wanted to share with you what is written in this book, Special Testimonies, 1879. Quote, nature sympathized with the sufferings of its author. In other words, the author of all nature, the creator, according to John, the potter, the creator of all things. Nature sympathized with the sufferings of its author, the heaving earth, the rent rocks, and the terrific darkness. Proclaimed indeed that it was the Son of God that died. Let me also remind you that as Christ rode into Jerusalem on the back of the white donkey, the white mule, we learned that the rocks, the very rocks themselves, testified of his divinity. See, the rocks knew, even, for they are created by him as well. Quote, there was a mighty earthquake. The veil of the temple was rent in twain. Terror seized the executioners and the spectators as they beheld the sun veiled in darkness, and felt the earth shake beneath them, and saw and heard the rending of the rocks. John and the script of Joseph of Arimathea, the centurion, this is the officer of 100 soldiers, knelt and said, surely this was the Son of God. Pontius Pilate, ladies and gentlemen, had accumulated all this evidence, not only of what happened on that hour of crucifixion, but also the morning of the third day. He interviewed the people that were eyewitnesses, and he wrote a report to Caesar that caused a lot of grief for Pontius Pilate and the Romans at the time. For Pontius Pilate and these soldiers who witnesses were taken under arrest back to Rome to appear before Caesar himself to renounce this incredible myth, this story, at the pang of death. Pontius Pilate says, my record is true. I'm not going to lie. See, the problem is Caesar was God in the Roman world, and to say such a story was high treason, that this Jesus was resurrected and was more powerful than Caesar. Pontius Pilate was executed, and so were the centurions, the centurion and the soldiers. They dare not say that they didn't see that. Deny it, they could not. They dared not. Special testimonies indeed. Continuing, quote, the mocking and jeering of the chief priests and elders was hushed as Christ commended his spirit into the hands of his Father. Interdimensionally, ladies and gentlemen, quantum mechanics, this is still God, him. It's very, very easy to understand how quantum mechanics, things can coexist and still be one, yet be separated. The astonished throng began to withdraw and grope their way to the darkness of the city. As they went, they smote upon their breasts as they went, and in terror, speaking scarcely above a whisper, said among themselves, it is an innocent person that has been murdered. What if indeed he is, as he asserted, the Son of God? Oh, what if he's God himself? Indeed, he said he was. Before Abraham was, he told the chief priests, I am. I am the great I am, the unspoken word in Hebrew. He declared himself to be God. First John chapter 5. I want to just wrap this up and with these scriptures and then show you the different fulfillment of the types and antitypes. First John, this is he, First John 5, 6 through 11. This is he that came by water and blood, even Jesus Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, blood is mostly water. When we enter into the womb and our pluripotent stem cells begin to grow and the fetus begins to take shape, it is done by water molecules. The uterus, the womb. You can't have a baby born until what breaks? The water breaks. You begin life. The blood itself draws sustenance from the water of the mother. We're in a water world, folks. And Jesus Christ did his miracles by water. He walked on the water. He turned the water into wine. And he gave the incredible truth that he is the water of life. Told the woman at the well, drink of the water I shall give you, and you shall never thirst again. Spiritual water. And so 1 John clarifies this. It is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. For there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. They're all the same, they're united. And there are three that bear witness in earth. Now, not on the earth, in the earth. The Spirit, and the water, and the blood. And these three agree in one. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. This is a huge part of the mystery. For if we receive the witness of men, that's not enough. The witness of God is much greater. This is what 1 John records. For this is the witness of God which he has testified of his Son. He that believeth on the Son of God hath the witness in himself. In other words, that Spirit enters in himself. God has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. What else? What is the most important gift of all time? This holiday season, entering into this new year of 2013, we're going to see a lot of trials and tribulation. You bet we are. It's got to happen in the time frame of the Holy Scriptures, folks. It is, again, so imperative that you get right with your head, that you understand who Christ is and was. No fictions, no myths, no fables, no lies by lying, conniving men seeking to distract you and to take your money. Don't you find it interesting, folks, that the Scripture uses the word in earth? This Scripture of 1 John 5, 6 through 11. The witness of Christ fulfilling the law of Moses. The witness comes in the earth. Not on the earth, not above the earth, in the earth. What does that mean? It means this occurred to finish the work in the earth, inside a cave, 20 foot down from the surface. Now you know why I'm excited about the story of Ron Wyatt. Oh, he's not a scriptorian. I am by no means a scriptorian. I don't work in a seminary. I don't spend every minute of every day studying ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek. I just know enough to know what the Spirit tells me is true. Let me wrap up here in the next 10 minutes. I'm going to give you, I hope you take some notes of this. If not, go back to the archives and listen to this part above all else. I'm going to give you a synopsis here. I'm going to give it all to you. I'm going to give what I have written down in my notes, the types and the antitypes. The types, again, let me reiterate. Type is an example of something that will become later and be the antitype, the fulfillment, the real deal, not an example. Number one, we talked about the Passover lamb. The Passover lamb was killed by the whole assembly of the congregation of the house of Israel. That's the type. The antitype to that, Jesus was killed by the sins of the whole world. So you see, type number two, the Passover lamb died in the evening of the 14th day of the first month, specifically at 3 o'clock in the early evening, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Antitype, Christ, our Passover lamb, died in the 3 o'clock at the top of the hour of the 14th day of the first month, right on time. Type number three, the sacrificial lamb had to be without blemish, sinless, perfect in every way. The antitype to that, of course, Jesus was without blemish. There was no fault in him. Even his enemies agree to that. Type number four, the Passover lamb could be either a lamb or a goat. And Jesus himself, antitype, explained he represented both the lambs and the goats. Type number five, the lamb or the goat that was to be sacrificed must be a male and must be young. Not old and gnarly, young in its prime. Of course, Jesus was a male. He was young. And in his prime, absolutely. Type number six, the lamb was selected and kept apart, kept up for examination 4 days before Passover. Antitype, Jesus Christ, was kept apart or basically kept for examination for 4 days before the persecution. Coincidence? Come on, folks. It keeps getting incredibly more coincidental. According to all of the sacrificial texts, the Passover lamb must have no broken bones. The antitype, of course, for number 7, Jesus had no broken bone. When the centurion went, he broke the bones of the other 2 hanging by him because it was getting late and they had to wrap it up. But Jesus had already given up the ghost. Rather than break his legs, break his bones of his legs, snap his legs, which caused the final suffocation, the centurion just thrust his spear in his side and ruptured the spleen. Type number 8, the Passover lamb was to be roasted whole, not to be cut apart. The antitype, of course, Jesus was left in one piece, was not dismembered. Number 9, the type, the archetype. No water was to be put on the sacrificial lamb. Of course, Jesus thirsted for water, was never given any water. The Passover lamb and the sacrificial bullocks would be flayed first. They would be hit first and flayed. Of course, Jesus' back was flayed twice as well. Type 11 in the rituals, the Passover lamb was not to remain until morning. It would be put away, not to remain overnight. And of course, Jesus was not on the cross overnight till morning. The lamb's blood was to be sprinkled on the altar in the Holy of Holies, and now, of course, we know that's exactly what happened, thanks to Ron Wyatt, the simple amateur archaeologist. This goes on and on, folks, all the things that the types versus the antitypes. The burnt offering and the Passover lamb was to be laid upon the wood. Was Jesus Christ laid upon the wood? Was the cross of wood made of stone or wood? Now here's another little thing that I came upon. To me, it's a big thing. To other people, it will probably be just insignificant. There is a manuscript, again written in 1897, explaining the rituals of the Passover. A study done. And here's what it said, and I quote, "In the temple service," this is the Levitical priests now, the priests of Levi, sons of Levi. "In the temple service, when the sacrificial animal was slain, the high priest, clothed in his white robes," quote, "caught in his hand the blood that gushed forth, and the first blood that touched his hand, he cast it in the direction of the tabernacle." Later on, when the temple was built, he cast it in the direction of the temple. And this blood was done 7 times. There's a number 7 again, folks, as an expression of perfection. So in the Jewish world, 7 is the symbol of God and his perfection. And so this manuscript, written by a woman named Ellen White, explains, so Christ, the great antitype, himself being both high priest and victim, clothed with his own spotless robes of righteousness, after giving his life for the world, did he cast the virtue of his offering, a crimson current, in the direction of the holy place? She was looking at this being the direction of the temple. Does Christ's blood flow towards the temple as, again, it was done in the rituals? Well, she didn't know the story of Ron Wyatt. She, of course, lived and wrote this well before the excavation of Ron Wyatt. A testimony that, again, he took the blood sample from the crevice and from the stone box and from even the mercy seat itself, took samples of the blood, and it was still alive after 2,000 years. So it's a mystery. No, it really isn't. Here's what I want to leave you with. How many places on the body of Christ did Jesus bleed? Let's count them. His forehead, from the crown of thorns shoved on his head, number 1. Number 2, the back where he was flayed. He was bleeding heavily from his backside. That's 2. His 2 hands, that's 4. His side where the Spirit entered, that's 5. His 2 feet. Count them, ladies and gentlemen. 7 wounds, 7 places he bled. What it is, folks. Hey, listen, you have a great weekend. Hope you consider what I've talked to you today and understand this is an incredibly glorious good news. The story behind the story, indeed. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be well.